If you are free to play in Genshin Impact and you want to deal those big damage numbers, then this video is for you. Because today, I'm gonna show you the best weapons that make your account super duper strong without having to spend a single Primogem. We're gonna go over what these weapons are, where you can get them for yourself, and of course, which characters to best use them on so you can start leveling up your damage output right now. Let's jump right into it. Now, first of all, I want to start talking about 3-star weapons. And I know what you think, well, 3-star weapons, they're not really shiny, but believe me, some of the 3-star weapons in the game are so powerful that they borderline rival 5-star options because of one very simple reason. See, 3-star weapons in Genshin are very common. Whenever you make a 10 pull on a banner, bam, you get like 9 3-star weapons out of it, and in addition to that, you also find them in chests throughout the world. And that puts 3-star weapons in the position where you can easily afford to refine them to their maximum refinement rank to increase the power of their effects. And some of their effects are absolutely borderline broken. So, let's get into the best options here. The first 3-star on today's list would be the Magic Guide. This is a 3-star catalyst, which you can obtain from wishing on any banner as quote-unquote 3-star trash, but this book is anything but trash because it has a very high elemental mastery substat of 187 at level 90, plus its effect makes it that whenever you deal damage against an opponent affected by Hydro or Electro, your damage is increased by 12% at refinement rank 1, but given the fact that you're gonna have a lot of them, let's just say 24% at R5. Now, the reason why this is so good is because there are actually a lot of very good Catalyst users in the game who really like to use this weapon. For example, if you were to play Sucrose as your on-field damage dealer, dealing swirl damage, then Elemental Mastery is exactly what you want because it increases swirl damage, plus the increased damage output against enemies affected by Hydro or Electro. That covers a good chunk of swirlable reactions, leading to even more damage. But that's not all. For example, if you have Citlali, which is not too far-fetched because she's part of the currently best team in the game, Citlali also really likes to have Elemental Mastery, so the Magic Guide is a very strong and super cheap stat stick for her. Or, a bit more funky, if you, let's say, play Lisa or Yaemiko as Electro DPS in a Dendro team, then guess what? Elemental Mastery is very important in those teams, regardless of whether Hyperbloom or Quicken, and also, in both Hyperbloom and Quicken teams, you can benefit from the effect. Same thing goes for Mizuki if you want to swirl with her like you do with Sucrose, and even for Nahida herself, the Dendro Archon, she also likes to be built with Elemental Mastery, and the Magic Guide has exactly that. The next 3-star weapon that any account should have, ideally at Refinement Rank 5 and ideally even multiple at Refinement Rank 5, would be, of course, the OG Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers. This book is definitely a thrilling tale, but not so much for its base attack or the HP substat. I mean, whoever can use it can use it. But the reason why you want to have this is the effect, which makes it that whenever you swap the character who holds this book out, then the character that you switch to afterwards will get a massive attack bonus for 10 seconds of 24% at base or at Refinement Rank 5, which I'm just gonna assume now, plus 48% attack for 10 seconds. This catalyst is incredibly good because, as it turns out, in Genshin Impact, there are a lot of catalyst characters in a sort of off-field support role. And that means if you give them Thrilling Tales, and then you swap into your main DPS after you've used them, that means your main DPS is going to be blessed with such a high attack increase that it's kind of like they're wearing 2 sands at the same time. Which characters am I referring to? Well, let's talk about them again. Sucrose, for example. If you don't want to use her as on-fielder, but just as swirl support, who uses Viridescent Venera to shred away enemy defenses, then not only will your DPS afterwards have weakened enemies, but also they will be blessed with the attack buff to rip those enemies a new one. Or another character that is actually completely free and every account has her would be Barbara, a nice free-to-play healing option who can not only give this attack buff to the main DPS afterwards, but since she is a healer, she even benefits from the HP that Thrilling Tales give her. But also, of course, just like before, you could put this on Citlali, giving her less elemental mastery, meaning her shield is going to be weaker, but therefore she buffs the actual on-field DPS, which is probably the better option actually. And then if you wanted to, you could also put it on Nahida if you want to sacrifice a bit of her own performance to make your on-field DPS better. But that is just the first thing that comes to mind. There are, of course, many more Catalyst characters out there who could use the Thrilling Tales to make your on-field character even stronger. The next 3-star on the list is also one that you obtain as a side product from wishing on any banner out there, and therefore you're probably gonna have a lot of them, and that would be the Slingshot. Let me tell you, don't be fooled by the fact that this bow only has 3 stars. This bow is borderline broken for on-field bow characters and in my opinion only surpassed by probably some of their best in slot 5-star options. Let's get into it. First off, as a substat, the Slingshot has crit rate, which in and of itself is already great. But the kicker here is that at level 90, this crit rate substat is 31.2%. That is a whole bunch given that it is just a 3-star bow and in the same ballpark with the pay-to-play 4-star battle pass options. So if it would end here, then just with that substat alone, that would already make the Slingshot a viable stat stick. But, of course, there is more, because the effect of this bow makes it that if you get a normal or a charged attack against the enemy, and the arrow was only in the air for 0.3 seconds or shorter, meaning you're relatively close to the enemy, then your damage is increased by a whopping 60% at Refinement Rank 5. This is absolutely mental because 60% is such a big damage bonus on top of the already good crit rate substat. You could use this, for example, on Linny if you have him, because it also works with charge attacks. That's what Linny wants to do, so therefore it would work. But also you could play it with on-field Fischl or on-field Yelan, both theoretically options, and it would very much increase their damage output. Same goes with Tainari, or the, in my opinion, best character to use this would be Yoimiya. I think especially for Yoimiya, only her signature 5-star bow would probably be better. And just by the way, if you could maybe leave a quick like for the video, that would be greatly appreciated because it always helps me big time with the YouTube algorithm, so cheers so much for your support. But we're still not done with the 3-star weapons. Of course, when it comes to Genshin 3-star broken weapons, we have to talk about the Harbinger of Dawn. This sword, similar to the Slingshot, is also so good that on some characters it is only surpassed by actual 5-star weapons. Here's why. First of all, as a substat, it has crit damage and up to 46.9% of it, which is very nice, and this is combined with a crit rate increase by 28% at maximum refinement rank from the effect. Only catch here is you have to keep your HP above 90%, otherwise you lose the crit rate effect. But I think that is much less of a problem than people make it out to be, because you could always just put a healer on your team. For example, everybody gets Noelle for free. You could use her, then you're shielded, then you don't take damage and your HP stays at maximum. Boom, you have all the buffs. But even without shield, as long as you have a competent healer, that should work. As for which characters to use this on, well, you can use it on pretty much any sword DPS in the game, because crit rate and crit damage is something that basically everybody wants to have, but especially for DPS characters who don't care all that much about attack, like for example Alhaitham, for them, the Harbinger of Dawn is even better, because the only downside that this sword has, and in fact all 3-star weapons have, is that their base attack is lower than the 4-star and 5-star options. But then again, on characters who don't care all too much about attack, this downside is negated and you just get the pure bonus from all the crit that it provides. But what if your main character is not a sword user but rather a polearm one? Well, in that case, I have the White Tassel for you. This 3-star polearm is in a relatively similar position to the Harbinger of Dawn in that as a substat it has a crit, in this case crit rate, and then at maximum refinement rank, normal attack damage is increased by a whopping 48%. This is a very deadly combination for polearm characters. For example, let's say you have Sino as your DPS. This thing here helps. Same with Arlecchino, I think on her it is very good. And even for Hu Tao, albeit not that amazing, it is at least feasible until you have something better. The only thing with the white tassel that you need to be very careful about is you cannot get this polearm from wishes. The only way to obtain it is from chests in the Liyue region, and that means if you have opened them all and you accidentally sell off all your white tassels, then you're never gonna get them again. So make sure to rather refine them into each other than selling them off. Now, if you ask me, these would be the best 3-star weapons in the game because they're also very universal in who you can use them on. However, there are 3 more that I quickly want to go over, not in that much detail, because in my opinion, they're mostly used as just a stat stick, but still, it is useful to have them. And that would be, for example, the Black Tassel, which is a 3-star polearm that has a big HP percent substat. Therefore, it is great with HP scaling polearm characters, like for example Zhongli. If you want to make his shield as strong as physically possible, then the Black Tassel is his best weapon to do that. But also, let's say Chevreuse, if you want her to heal as much as possible, then you want her to have a lot of HP, and the Black Tassel can also help with that. Then, in case you don't have a lot of Favonius swords on your account, if you have an energy-hungry character, then just give them the Skyrider sword. This 3-star blade is a good substitute for Favonius weapon because not only does it give you a whole lot of energy recharge, but at maximum refinement rank, it also gives you plus 24% attack after triggering an elemental burst. So much for the 3-star weapons, but these are not the only free-to-play friendly weapons. In fact, there are also a lot of 4-star weapons that you can get without having to spend Primogems on specific weapon banners. So let's go over them. Now, the first category of 4-star weapons that I want to go over here would be the fishing weapons, to be precise, the catch as well as the fleuve cendre. First off, the catch is a very universal and very valuable weapon, a polearm that gives you more energy recharge and has the very strong effect that it increases elemental burst damage as well as elemental burst crit rate. This is super duper strong and very useful on many polearm characters out there. First and foremost, Raiden as well as Xiangling, they're like the 2 main characters to use this, but literally any polearm character who deals damage with their elemental burst can make good use of it. So, if you want to get it for yourself, then you get it from the fishing vendor in Inazuma that you can find right here. The second fishing weapon I want to talk about would be the Fleuve Cendre Ferryman, which is a fontaine fishing weapon, also giving you energy recharge, and with its effect a nice 60% crit rate increase for elemental skills, plus even more energy recharge with plus 32%. This is, for example, in many cases Furina's best-in-slot free-to-play weapon, but of course you can also use it on other characters who like to use their skill as well as their elemental burst. Now, up next, I want to talk about some 4-star weapons that you get from banners, but in this case, because I said that I don't want to have gacha weapons on this list, we're only going to talk about the 4-star weapons that you can get from the standard banner, because obviously you're not going to spend Primogems for the standard banner, but you will always gain some standard banner wishes here and there, and therefore over time, you will get your hands on them too. Here, first and foremost, I want to talk about the Favonius weapons because they are all very nice, giving you a lot of energy recharge not only for the character themselves, but also for the entire team. Basically, whenever you have an energy-hungry character in your party, a Favonius weapon happens to be the first go-to option. And especially the Favonius Warbow, that is one that you can actually get for free by doing the quest along short. So regardless of your standard banner luck, at least the bow is something that every account out there will get 1 copy of for free. However, these are not the only good standard banner weapons. Also, the Sacrificial Sword is another very good energy recharge weapon, plus the Sacrificial Fragments because they have a really good elemental mastery substat, and as we previously established, there are a whole lot of Catalyst characters in the game who really like to have high elemental mastery. So, in that case, Sacrificial Fragments, also very good option. And the last standard banner weapon I want to talk about would be a bit of a controversial one, but I think especially this catalyst is incredibly underrated, and that would be the Widsith. See, first of all, the Widsith already has a good 55.1% crit damage substat, but the real kicker here is the effect. What this does is, when the wielding character takes the field, they will gain 1 out of 3 buffs. Which buff it is always random, but what is available here is either plus 60% attack, or plus 48% elemental damage, or plus 240 elemental mastery. And might I remind you, this is all at refinement rank 1. If you have this at refinement rank 5, you can go so far as double these figures. Now, obviously, 60% more attack, 48% more elemental damage, and 240 elemental mastery is a really good buff. The only kicker here is that you don't have any control over which of these buffs you will get. And I think that is the reason why a lot of people underrate this weapon, but as long as you use the Wit Sith on the right characters, this is actually not too much of a problem. Here's what I mean. If you, let's say, were to use the Wit Sith on Neuvillette, then I can totally understand why you would not like it. Because Neuvillette scales on HP, therefore the attack buff would be completely wasted, and also he doesn't necessarily trigger a lot of reactions, therefore elemental mastery doesn't help him all too much either. Therefore, Neuvillette is not a good character to use this on. However, if you put this on a character who can benefit from basically all of these 3 stats, all of a sudden it becomes really good. For example, let's take a look at Wriothesley. Wriothesley is an attack scaler, so 60% more attack would be awesome. Same thing goes with elemental damage, and if you play him in a meld team where he is actually the one triggering the melds, then even plus 240% elemental mastery would help him. Or another example again, Electro Catalyst onfielders, Lisa or Yaemiko in a Dendro team. Attack, elemental damage, and elemental mastery, all very helpful in this case. So yeah, long story short, the Wit Sith is a very strong 4-star weapon as long as you use it on the right characters. But alright, so much for the standard banner 4 stars. The next category of weapons that I want to talk about would be the Blackcliff weapons, and I'm aware this is a bit of a gray area when it comes to free-to-play because you have to get them from the shop from Star Glitter, but then again, over time you will acquire Star Glitter anyway, so I think it is fair to at least discuss them here. Now, the thing about the Blackcliff weapons is they are not really bad, but on the other hand, in my opinion, they're also not good enough to justify the price that you're paying for them. So I personally would recommend only go for a Blackcliff weapon if you really need a crit damage stat stick and you don't have any other option available. But in general, I think most accounts out there rather save up their Star Glitter to go and buy copies and constellations from 4-star characters from the shop from it and not the Blackcliff weapons. The same thing, by the way, goes for the Royal weapons. In my opinion, they're just not really good. Don't go for them. Save up for the characters. Now, technically, we would also have to talk about event-exclusive 4-star weapons. You know, the stuff that you get from playing these specific events, which only occur once, and after that, you will never get those weapons again. But I decided to not feature any of them here today, because let's be real, there is a very good chance that most of you will have missed many of those weapons, so there's no real point in me recommending stuff that you will never get anyway. And the final category of 4-star weapons that we definitely must talk about would be, of course, the craftable ones. These are the prime 4 stars that a lot of players will go for, so let's also take a look at which of those craftable weapons are the most desirable ones. And the first one on this list would be the Sapwood Blade. We've talked a lot about energy recharge swords already, but if you don't want to use the 3-star one and you're unlucky on the standard banner, then the Sapwood Blade is your go-to option. So if you have an energy-hungry sword character, then look no further and craft it. Up next, we would have the Mappa Mare. This is kind of like the 4-star upgrade to the 3-star magic guide, giving a bit less elemental mastery, therefore having much higher base attack, and also the effect, granting elemental damage bonus, is very nice to have, therefore a good option for many Catalyst characters out there. But what if your character wants to have elemental mastery and they have a sword? Well, then look no further than the Iron Sting. This is a very good sword giving you 165 elemental mastery at max rank, but not only that, it is also able to increase all damage dealt. This, for example, is a very strong option if you have Kazuha, because he likes to swirl and therefore needs a lot of elemental mastery. If you want to play Kukishinobu as a Hyperbloom trigger, this is also your go-to 4-star. And then, naturally, we need to also mention Alhaitham, because as we previously established, Alhaitham likes to have elemental mastery, therefore this is naturally a good sword for him too, just to name a couple of options. Now, up next we have one of the, in my opinion, most underrated craftable weapons in the game, and that would be the Finale of the Deep. This thing is incredibly good, giving you a lot of attack with the substat, but what is especially interesting here is the effect. When you use an elemental skill, your attack will be increased and you gain a bond of life. And when that bond of life is cleared, then you will gain an additional flat attack on top. This means that you want to use the Finale of the Deep in a team with a healer so you can heal away that bond of life to get even more attack, which already makes it very strong. But another nice side effect is that it allows you to use the Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy artifact set basically on any sword character, giving you a nice plus 18% attack and then a whopping plus 52% damage with the 4P set. This artifact set was originally reserved for Arlecchino and Clorinde, but with the Finale of the Deep giving Bond of Life and then a healer in the team healing that away again, this means you can fully utilize this very strong artifact set, plus you get all the nice attack buffs from the Finale of the Deep itself. I think if you use it in the right team, it's gonna be very busted. Up next, very quick, we have the Flute of Etzpitzal. This came with the Natlan update, and it is good for sword characters who scale on defense, like Chiori, like Albedo, or mainly Shilonen, who is one of the best characters in the game, so this is definitely not a bad sword. However, if you don't have those specific defense scalers, you should rather skip it. And then the last 4-star on today's list would be the Earthshaker. This is also a Natlan craftable, the Claymore in this case, and the reason I put this on the list is mainly because of Mawik, who is currently the best on-field damage dealer in the game, and this whole sword is kind of tailor-made for her, so if you have Mawika and you want to craft her a nice Claymore, then this would be the one to go for. Whew, now, I know this was a whole lot. We now went over a lot of 3 as well as 4-star weapons, but before we call it a day and end the video, I also quickly want to take a look at a couple of 5-star weapons. I know I said we're going to keep it free to play, and that's what we're going to do, but I think we should take a look at 5-star weapons on the standard banner, because sooner or later, when you pull on the standard banner, which everybody does, you will end up getting 1 or 2 of them, so let's also take a look at here which ones are the best. Now, first of all, I want to talk about 2 swords here, those being the Aquila Favonia as well as the Skyward Blade. Both of them are extremely good on Bennett, as we previously established, one of the best characters in the game, so that means those weapons in and of themselves already have a good value, and especially the Skyward Blade is nice, because not only does it give you a ton of energy recharge with a good base attack, but it too increases your crit rate and deals a bit of additional damage based on your attack. The same thing goes for the Skyward Harp, where I would go so far to say if you pull this by accident, if you lose a 50-50 or something, then this bow is so good, you can't really call it an accident, it has to be a love child. See, the Skyward Harp not only has very high base damage with 674, but it also comes with a 22% crit rate substat, which is very nice, and as if that's not enough, you also get a plus 20% crit damage bonus from the effect. All in all, a very strong bow for both on and off-field bow characters. Same thing, by the way, goes for the Lost Prayer of the Sacred Winds. This is a pretty strong catalyst, high attack, high crit rate substats for specifically on-field catalyst characters, like for example if you want to use Yaimiko as an on-fielder, if you use Wanderer, also for Wriothesley it is pretty darn decent, and even for the upcoming Verisa, I think she too will like this quite a lot. Same thing goes for the Primordial Jadewing Spear. Don't want to go all too much into the details. Again, high base damage, crit rate, even more attack in the effect. It's a good spear to have, many characters can use it. And if you're still relatively new to the game, then definitely also don't miss these valuable beginner tips right here. We see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, travel smart.